So welcome, everybody. It is fabulous to be with you tonight, and I thank you for coming to join with me. I really love sharing, and every opportunity to do that is really fabulous and so special. So thank you for that and for allowing me the space to share and express myself. So if you're comfortable to close your eyes, please do. And take a breath into the middle of your chest, a slow, deep breath into the middle of your chest. And as you breathe out, just imagine in your awareness that you're breathing out from the middle of your chest. Just keep breathing, slow, deep breaths into your heart center. And be aware of your body. And be aware of the weight of your body. Just simply the weight of your body. And become aware of sensation that you feel anywhere in your body. Simply awareness of whatever you feel anywhere in your body. And become aware of your breath moving in and out of your body. Your chest, your belly, expanding and slowly releasing. And maybe become aware of the subtle feeling of your breath coming in through your nostrils. And the warm air that leaves your nostrils. And become aware of your heart center in the middle of your chest, deep in the middle of your body. And become aware of the space that's in your heart. And take a breath in, a deep, slow breath in. And out. And again, a deep, slow breath in. And out. And a deep, deep breath in. Slowly, slowly breathe out. And slowly open your eyes. And smile. Absolutely beautiful. Okay. So I said that tonight really was kind of an open forum for anything. And in that space, we can talk about anything that you would like, about sex, about pleasure, about energy, about relationships, about intimacy, about energy. We cannot talk about politics because we are not. We cannot talk about COVID because we are not. We cannot talk about the economy, wherever it might be, anywhere in the world, because we are not. We are talking about sex, and we are talking about pleasure, and we are talking about love, and we're talking about intimacy and connection and all sorts of things like that. So we can do one of two things. Very often for these webinars, people start sending lots of questions before, which actually didn't happen today, which was kind of interesting. So I can start talking about stuff that has come up in the week for me, or the last kind of couple of days, or you guys can start asking questions. What would you like to do? Should I just kind of start, and then whenever you want to ask something, you'll jump in, or just send the question through any way that you would like. You can unmute yourselves. You can type it in the chat box. Is that good? Okay, there's a question. Yes.
So, Jonty, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I am dating a gentleman who really likes the shaved pubic area. I don't want to shave my pubic area. I like my pubic area the way it is, and I don't like his pubic hair either. So this is kind of a point of division. It's not a serious one, but it's something that's on my mind when we're making love that kind of separates us now, that I know that my genitals aren't in optimal condition for him. And I have shaved for him. And we had a wonderful time, and that was fun and all, but the grow back was so painful. And I realized that I would have to make a consistent effort either to get waxed or to keep shaved. And I just don't want to. It's not who I am. So can you speak to this and maybe give some advice on how we can come together on this issue?
It's a really interesting question, actually. And, on one level, it's a seemingly small thing, but sometimes these small things actually can become quite big because of what's underneath them. And this is really, it's a really big thing to be aware of. That so much of what we say, of what we talk about, of what we share, it's important to be aware of what's underneath it. Not just the question. And that's really big. Like what's underneath that, and what's the story, and what's the belief about it? So it starts with a conversation, and it starts with a conversation as to, firstly, why would he prefer you to have no pubic hair as opposed to having? And kind of what's behind that? Because very often there's a belief in that, and a lot of these beliefs kind of come from porn. Because porn is the model that we get for sex. And, we have this image of these kind of perfect bodies. Because if somebody's going to be, in terms of general porn, you're an actress or an actor. And part of the reason that you do that, or that you're chosen for that, is because of the way that you look, of the way that your body looks, and the way that everybody expects your body to look. So there's that huge expectation that's based on something that's not actually real, because it's an illusion. Porn's an illusion. It's a fantasy. Like, like you watch Bruce Willis blowing up Moscow, porn is the same thing. It's an illusion. We often don't think that porn is a fantasy. And that's a really big disconnect. And I actually read something recently, which was kind of interesting. It was an interesting take on porn, that often all porn is videos of people working. Because it's of people working. I love to watch food shows, and I love to watch cooking shows and cooking competitions. And like now we're watching old seasons of Top Chef, but it's people working because they're working in the kitchen, and that's what they're doing. So these are people having sex, and that's their work, but we take it in this whole different kind of vein. So it needs to begin with a conversation of saying, okay, why is that such a thing for you? Why is that important? And then where does that come from? And what is the expectation around it? And that's an important one. What's the expectation of it? And if you had or you didn't have pubic hair, what would the real difference be? and it opens a discussion. And there's no real right or wrong answer in this, and it's ultimately a question of my take. If something is uncomfortable for you and it doesn't work for you, then really that's not something that you should do. And if that's coming up, then fair chance there are going to be a whole lot of other little things coming up, because it's saying it's almost conditional. So I'm going to find you attractive if this. So maybe you change that, and then there's the next one, and then there's the next one, and then there's the next one. So where does that kind of stop in a way? Because then it becomes, okay, so if you don't want me to have pubic hair, what else would you want me to change? So maybe you don't like the way that I laugh. Then what? And it kind of goes from there. So it becomes a question of saying, let's look at the belief and the story around it. And then maybe there is, in terms of your body, maybe there is something that's a meeting point. And maybe somewhere there's something like that maybe you could have pubic hair like up to your pubic bone, and then the lips of your yoni would be shaved or waxed or whatever. And maybe there's something in that. So I can just give you kind of possibilities in this, because it's a really interesting one, but there isn't kind of a yes or a no on that. Is that a little bit helpful? Good. Okay. Cool. That was an interesting starting point. Thank you. That was, yeah, interesting. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions, or should I think somebody else put a hand up a moment ago. No, okay. So what's been really interesting for me in the past couple of weeks has been looking quite deeply at, firstly, how we learn, and secondly, the subconscious and the shadow. And I've really been going into this. And that reminds me of something. So before I forget, Leah, I saw that you have a meditation coming up on rage. And that's one that I would like to do. So it's very interesting, this thing about rage. So there's a lot coming up at the moment for women working with rage, and it's kind of in the category of something called sacred rage. And men have an enormous amount of anger and rage as well, and we don't have a lot of outlets for it because at the moment, so much of the focus of that work is for women. And it's really, really interesting. So at the end of this, maybe even I'll ask Leah to give some information about this because it's a really powerful experience. So let me share this with you. And there's a few points to it. So a couple of weeks ago, I had a really deep massage experience with someone that I do some regular swaps with. And one of the things that really deep massage brings when you are really open and vulnerable is it really allows what's inside of us to come to the surface. It really brings that, it really takes away so many of those barriers. And because it works with the body, it brings to the surface what's in our subconscious. And this is kind of connected to what I was saying before, that more and more we're finding out that we are mostly driven by our subconscious. And if we think that we are making all of these conscious choices in life, we're actually not. And some of the teachers coming out with some of this are saying that maybe 5% of what we do is conscious. And the rest of it is being driven by subconscious, by patterns, by conditioning, by the epigenetic programs that we live with. That doesn't mean that we can't change them because we can. It doesn't always mean it's easy. But such a big part of this is in the body because the subconscious is in the body. not in the conscious mind. The conscious mind has all of our stories, all of our defenses, all of our explanations, all of our justifications, all the wonderful things that we love. And often we have such good intellects. And all of that is the distraction from what's really happening inside of us. And when we can really do this deep body connection, that's when this will start coming to the surface, where the emotions that are sitting there will start coming to the surface. So I had this experience, and then I was driving home afterwards, and I started feeling such anger. And I've done some really deep anger work over time. One of the first growth workshops I ever did had this amazing anger process where you were given these kind of battens of newspaper wrapped in tape. And there was this whole build-up to really get in touch with this anger inside of you in this really dark room. And, you know, you picked this thing up and you started whacking it on the floor and just allowing this to come out. And I broke, I don't know how many of those. And then I just started pounding the floor until my hands were just kind of blood. So I've done some anger stuff, been there. And this brought up this massage. By the time I got home, it wasn't anger, it was rage. And I lay down to actually engage with this. And I saw this aspect of me that was a being made of fire. It must have been 10 foot tall, maybe even bigger. It was huge. And the energy of it was just enormous. So I started doing some tantric work with this, some very particular meditation of destroying it, then loving it, and processing like that, and then seeing what was underneath it. And it was an enormous release. I saw so much anger towards my parents, towards women, sexual anger. And I saw the impact that this had had on my life. And it's moving. And all of these things take time, especially when they're so deep and they're so strong. So it requires patience from us. And one of the real points of sharing this is this. So I've been doing growth work for a long time. And the journey into ourselves and into who we are is endless. And it's so important to understand that. It's like, you know, we live in a world of achievement, and we're looking for achievement, and we're looking for milestones, and we're looking for success in various things. And on spiritual and sexual paths, we're looking for success and we're looking for enlightenment. And when we are enlightened, then everything's going to change and you're never going to get angry anymore. And like life is going to be perfect. It's not, because you're still dealing with the world every day. We deal with it differently. And it's not a state, it's not a place that we get to that's there and it's definitive and that's it. It's a constant, endless unraveling and a revealing and a coming into this in ways that are often really, really subtle. And it's such an important thing because we learn, and most of us know this, we learn through practice. We learn through doing things. And we learn through doing them again and again and again and again. So when we're on a journey of growth, when we're on a journey of sexual healing, when we're on a journey of sexual discovery, of discovering who we are, of taking away the patterns, the conditioning, the inhibitions that we've lived with, the beliefs that we've accepted and taken on and that have been given to us. To take these away takes time, and it takes practice, and it takes dedication to that. So, you know, we do a meditation once and we think, wow, fabulous. Or I do this 3 times and that's wonderful. And not a lot happens. And then I go to this workshop, and at the end of the workshop, I feel amazing. But 2 days later, my life is kind of what it was. So I go to the next workshop, and then I go to the next one. And then, you know, ultimately I'm doing, I don't know, like think of the most bizarre thing you could, like high level, high pressure, triple espresso enemas to clear everything out and like, whatever it might be for you. But we just do kind of more and more and more and more, instead of saying, if there's a path and there's something in this path that resonates with me, because I've chosen that for some reason, then to keep doing that and to do the practices and to do what it is that we do and to be patient and to understand that you cannot force growth, you cannot force healing, you cannot force understanding, you cannot force release. It's going to happen in the time that it's going to happen. And if we commit to ourselves and we commit to that path, it will happen. And very often it's not going to happen in the way that we think it's going to, but it will. And I was reading something yesterday about a particular pranayama practice. So pranayama is a branch of yoga that deals with breathing practices. And I was just exploring a little bit about this particular practice. It's something that I've done quite a lot of. And there was one line in this piece that I thought was fabulous. And the line was, do this exercise every day for a year with no expectation of anything happening. And I thought about that and I thought, so you bring that to a Western mindset and you say, okay, do this practice every day for a year with no expectation of anything happening. And people are going to look at you like you're nuts. Like, there's no way I'm going to do that because I want to take a pill or I want to make a phone call or I want to watch a webinar and instant fix. And I want to have one expanded orgasm or one yoni massage and everything's fabulous. And I don't work like that. And we have this expectation of this incredible quick fix and this incredible changing. And when we can switch the perspective to, here is this journey that literally is in every moment and every breath that we take. And every breath has a moment of incredible possibility. And if we drop a little bit more into our hearts, a little bit more into authenticity, into possibility, we connect with something that allows it to happen. And when we understand how much comes from the subconscious, then we start to be aware of the fact that actually, and I'm sure this is in the Bible somewhere, I could be wrong on that. It says, of mine own self, I do nothing. And all that we have to do is really connect with that energy, connect with that force, that power, connect with that possibility. And then it flows. And when we do that in a sexual sense, when we do that in an intimate space, when we do that in the space of pleasure, we open ourselves to something, for something to emerge. And it emerges from the unknown. Because we know what we know, and we have wonderful minds, we have wonderful intellects, we have this amazing internet to look up all the stuff and all the information in the whole wide world. But it really all comes from the unknown. And I look at my journey and I look at how I learn. So I read quite a lot and I listen to a fair amount of talks and webinars and things, but I'm quite picky about what I listen to and what I read and what I watch. And over time kind of learned sort of where the good stuff is, but that doesn't mean, everything can be inspiring if we really are open to it in so many ways. And more, I actually learn from being quiet. And I learned from doing yoga, and I learned from doing the work that I do, and I learned from doing the massage that I do. Because so often when people walk in to see me, I have no idea what you really need. I mean, there was a time where I absolutely knew, and I knew how to fix this, and I knew how to change it, and I knew what to tell you and everything, and that was wonderful. And more, it's just sitting there and allowing something to emerge. Practice, an idea, what it is that needs to be said, the way of touch, and it comes from the unknown. And it's the surrender that allows us to go there. And an enormous part of that is something really simple. And it's such a simple word that we kind of gloss over it because it's so simple, because we like the complex, we love that. And I look at the lessons and the workshops I teach and the retreats and things, and everybody can't wait to get to the depth of stuff and the complicated stuff. Let's get the basics first. And when we do that, then we can grow on it. The word is simply, there's a few words for it, but it's to relax. Just soften. And as soon as we really soften, when our bodies really soften, something can flow and something can move and something can be released and something can emerge. And, when somebody's stressed or they're tense, and you say to them, just relax. It's the worst thing you can say because, how can I relax? When we learn that and when it becomes almost a way of being. So in Tantra Yoga, the practice that I do, spend a lot of time in a very deep Shavasana, which is kind of the corpse pose. And it's normally the pose that you do at the end of a yoga class. So you're just lying on your back and you're deeply relaxed, and it kind of often will go into meditation. But in this practice, we do Shavasana in between every posture. And everything is moving from that state of relaxation. And one of the principles is that yoga is part of life. So the Shavasana in this is big. It's like your arms are way off the mat and your legs are wide because you're taking it into life. And we do the same thing with our sexuality. Sex is not this little box that we take out in very specific circumstances and a very specific context, and we use it and then we put it away again. It's in every moment of our lives, and it's in every cell of our bodies. And more we find that so much of what's playing out in our sexuality has nothing to do with sex. That's the place it's playing out. And so much that's happening sexually is impacting on every other part of our lives. And for most of us, sex is a friction thing. Friction thing means something goes in something. So I didn't know what we were going to talk about tonight, but my teaching partners are here. This is Fred. And this is Ginger. Say hi, Fred. Hi. They've been my longest teaching partners. Not these models, understand, over the years they kind of fall apart, but Fred and Ginger in their different incarnations. So friction sex, we put something in something and we move it, and there's friction, or we rub a clit, or we rub a lingam, a cock, whatever you want to call it, and there's friction. And friction is about contraction, and it's about tightness, and it's about hardness. And as soon as you soften, everything in that changes. And that's when it becomes about energy. And that's when it becomes about feeling. And that's when it becomes about intimacy. And I was writing a piece today. I'll probably share it on Monday, but I'll give you a little insight. We make these wonderful connections in our minds that have nothing to do with each other. But a part of us thinks they make sense, so we kind of put them together. We have said that sex and intimacy are the same thing, and they're nowhere near the same thing. So very often it's actually intimacy that we're looking for because that's where the fulfillment is, not the sex. That doesn't mean sex cannot be intimate, because of course it can, but it has to be a different way of having sex. And when we do this, we just open to the most amazing possibilities, and it all comes through softening and relaxing into that. And that doesn't mean you can't have hard and fire sex and animal and all of that stuff is wonderful. When it's there, when it arises as a natural expression. But the more that we can soften, the more that we can be in that space, it connects us to ourselves, to our hearts, to our bodies, and it allows that energy to flow. And it connects us to our partners, And that's where something can start to emerge that's very, very different. And so many of the practices that we do are about relaxing and kind of taking all that armoring and tension and everything else that we have away to deepen into the relaxation. And that's what so much of the learning is. It's not so much the learning the ideas, because the ideas are fabulous and they're important, absolutely, no question. And it's so much more about connecting to being in the body in that softness and allowing ourselves to emerge. And that's what's so important, allowing ourselves to emerge. Which is quite a lot of deep stuff, actually. I thought we were going to talk about, like, I don't know, how do you have anal sex tonight? You know, that's always the most common question. Or where's the G-spot and everything else? So we went in a totally different direction.
Jonty?
Yes, sure.
You mentioned something about sex and intimacy. Now, sex and love are, in some people's minds, it's one thing, but are they two different things?
Totally.
How does one explain that maybe to a partner, to say that they are different and that the intimacy is definitely in the love and the sex is just an independent thing or a separate thing?
So they can all be in the same place, but then we have to do something different. And essentially it comes from the way that most people have sex is, as I said, it's a friction experience and it's very goal-oriented. So the goal of sex for most people is an orgasm. As soon as that's there, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't have orgasms. I always need to put this in there because I talk quite a lot about the fact that orgasms are not kind of everything, and sometimes orgasms are a trap, and then everybody says, well, shouldn't we have orgasms? It's like, fuck, orgasms are fabulous. Absolutely. And there's so many different kinds of orgasms we have and can have, and all of that's wonderful. If orgasm is all that there is, then our focus is on a goal, which is about a performance, which is about pressure. Because I'm the one that has to make you come and give you this orgasm, and it's this performance. And we do what it is that we've patterned and conditioned to do, because I know this works. So it's about the goal. And as soon as it's about the goal, we're not present. That's the first thing about it. The second thing about it then is if we soften and we slow everything down, we start to feel a whole lot more. And one of the things we start to feel in that is we start to feel love, because we start to feel that I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to be anything or do anything other than here in this moment. And all I have to do is feel. And then before we even start that, we sit there with each other. And this is interesting because this is something that also came to me recently. And it's a big one. It's subtle, but it's really, really big. And I think I knew it, but it kind of really landed a few weeks ago. We are so quick to kind of start the sex or start the touching. And if we spend some time looking into each other's eyes, if we spend some time opening our hearts and connecting from there, and we don't move, we don't do anything until something from there reaches out and wants to move as a natural expression of that. It's not contrived. We're not making it happen and we're not doing it. We're allowing that to be there. And the more that we're in our hearts, the more then that we come together in this natural flow that becomes that expression. And maybe penetration will be a part of that, and maybe it won't. And maybe it'll just be some really gentle touching and kissing, and it might just be this amazing exploration of your neck in a way that I never have before. And maybe it can be, I'm going to smell your neck and do all of those things. And that's going to be a very different experience. And then that doesn't really end. And that becomes really, really cool and really interesting, because that doesn't necessarily end. That just kind of carries on, and the energy of that carries on. Yes, Leah.
Janti, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the comments since you were speaking so passionately and so presently, but there's a comment here that somebody wants to know about erotic meditation. What are some exercises that they can do to connect at the heart even before they begin the sex, as you say?
Me and my partner will try and manage. What can we try without touching each other? Okay. I will answer that. Masculine, feminine, all sorts of erotic meditations, Margot Anand. Absolutely. And I am been recording quite a few meditations about that. So how do you do that? The pleasure and energy, not. Okay, let me answer one at a time and not read three at once, because then I can't focus. So the first thing for a lot of these practices is create a space for them to happen in. And you're creating a sacred space. Light some candles, have some incense if you like, have some music. As a generalization, no music with words, because you don't want your mind focusing on the words. So don't choose your favorite love songs or instrumentals of your favorite love songs. The beautiful music, Reiki music, meditation music, there's so much of it around. There's beautiful chanting, a lot of beautiful Sanskrit mantras. There's so much that's there. You can have crystals in the space. You can have shells. You can have things you picked up on holiday. You can make a circle of rose petals. You can do anything you like. And you can just light one candle. When you do this, you're creating what we call a ritual space, a sacred space. And over time, it becomes a sanctuary. What this does is that when we create the space for this, we're coming into that with a different awareness, a different consciousness. So it's separate from everything else that we do. And a big part of it is we're coming into the space as lovers. And all of our other stuff, we're just putting outside of that. So family and the kids and work and everything else, we're going to pick that up afterwards. But now I'm here with you. So when we create the space, whether it's really simple, whether it's really complex, really the meaning of it is the awareness and the consciousness is different. And I'm coming into the experience with more presence. So that becomes the first part of it. Then, this is so simple, but I teach this all the time, and I can't tell you how important it is. You have to be warm. If you are not warm, you cannot relax and be present. And it's such a seemingly simple thing, but it's huge, because if we are cold, we're not present. And all that I'm focusing on is getting warm, and I can't relax and let go. So we come back to the relaxation story. You got to be warm. And then sit opposite each other. So if you're there with your partner, sit opposite each other. Otherwise, for the next couple of minutes, you'll be my lover and I'll be all your lovers. Isn't that fabulous? So you're going to look into each other's eyes. And the eye contact is vital, because that's where I see you. So when you're present, I know that. And when you're not, I know that. And that by itself is an amazing practice, eye gazing, just looking into each other's eyes. So if you can do that, 2 minutes seems like a long time sometimes. Start with just 2 minutes. And over time, you can increase that. And when you can spend, I don't know, I'll share this with you. It was quite a long time ago with one of my lovers. We spent we're at this beautiful place in Cape Town, had this huge bath, and we created this beautiful space in the bath with I don't know how many candles. And we sat in this bath looking into each other's eyes for more than an hour, not a word. And we cried and we laughed. And at some point, stuff started happening that was inexplicable. Her face changed into every woman that had ever been in my life. At some point, that just kind of happened. When I told her about that afterwards, she saw the same thing in me. It takes us to this incredible place. Start with 2 minutes. Never mind about like all the hype stories. 2 minutes. Spend 2 minutes there. It's amazing. Then, bring your hands up to your heart center. So everybody, bring your hands up to your heart center. And just connect with your heart. And then bring your hands forward to touch mine, to touch the divine, to touch your partner. And then I say to you, I acknowledge you as an aspect of myself. And you say that to me. And then you lean forward so your foreheads touch. And you have a giggle because you look really funny from there because you've got one eye or three eyes, and you just feel the connection. And slowly you move apart. And that's how you begin. So if you remember to email me tomorrow, don't do it in the chat, email me. And then I will send you that, that practice. And that's a really beautiful way to start connecting. And you don't have to do anything more than that. That's really, really, really amazing. So that's a cool way. Does that, who asked the question there? DV, does that answer your question, DV? Does that give you something? Partner talking about the pleasure and energy, not turning them on. That's a really interesting question, dear. And then there's a lot of breathing as well. You know, there's masculine and feminine breaths that you can do, but start with one thing at a time. And I think that could be an interesting one for you. The pleasure and energy, not turning them on. Okay, this is really, really interesting. So the cornerstone of what I teach and do, and from a healing perspective, is this. We live and we work in terms of patterns. The easy way to understand this is every time you brush your teeth in the same way. You bath or shower, you wash in the same way, you eat in the same way. Sexually, and in relationship, and in life, we do exactly the same thing. The patterns come from three places. They work, or we think they work. It's our comfort zone, and it's what we know. And that's how we live in every area of life until we become more aware of that. The patterns that we live with are in our mind and in our body. And that's really important because the body is going to do what it's been conditioned to do. And that's often through experience. So if you have never really had those kind of experiences of energy, of touching, then your body doesn't know that. So it doesn't know how to respond to that. And very often it's about a disconnect because we're not used to feeling, or we're used to. So for a lot of men, for example, genital stimulation, hard and fast. So when a guy starts touching himself when he's young, whatever age that might be, the goal of that is to have an orgasm. So I'm going to do that as quickly as I can because that's what's going to get me there. Women start touching men and they do the same thing. First, because that's what they've seen in porn. And secondly, because if they're communicating, he says, this is what I like, because that's what's going to get me to orgasm. And then you start learning some linga massage, and you start learning some other things, and you start touching really gently and really softly, and he doesn't feel anything because he's been so conditioned to feel something else. So there's a process of kind of resensitizing ourselves. Firstly, it's getting in touch with those parts of us, of understanding what energy is, of understanding what intimacy and fulfillment are. And then it's learning to be soft and gentle with your body, to touch in a different way. So here's a beautiful practice called sensual hands dancing. And it's kind of the beginning of that process. So bring your hands up, everybody. So you've got to have soft hands. So take a breath in, deep breath in. And slowly breathe out. And then very, very gently, really slowly. So when you move really slowly, you begin to feel. Just let your hands dance with each other. Fingers, your palms, back of your hands. Spaces between your fingers. So come to a stop and slowly close your eyes and just be aware of how you're feeling, of what is in your body, of what's in your hands, of whatever comes to awareness. How does that feel? What do you feel with that? Calm. It's a beautiful practice and a beautiful body meditation to do. And you can slowly extend that into your whole body. And then you can do that with a partner. So you sit opposite each other and you put your hands up. And very slowly you begin to dance just with each other's hands. So nobody's leading, nobody's following. So as a complete experience, you do the heart salutation that we did. You're looking into each other's eyes. You greet each other, you put your hands up, and then you just slowly begin to do that. And that's making love. So we've been very kind of, we've kind of put making love as a euphemism for sex. The same way sleeping together is making love. I've been in a bed with people all night where we have slept, where we haven't had sex. They're very different things. Sleeping together and sex are not the same thing. Again, it's like we make these connections, and that's just me. And sometimes I am very language pedantic. So if you sit opposite each other and you do that heart salutation, and you spend a little bit of time touching like that, and then you do that with your partner, and that is an incredible expression of making love. And then you can do that to your partner's face. They can lie down, they put their head in your lap, and really slowly, really gently for a few minutes, you just touch their face. And then they do the same for you. And then stop. That's important, because we have this idea that once we start this, it's going to go into sex. That's the pattern. And that's the problem very often, because it just becomes the pattern. And then we have the expectation, not the experience. Most times when we have sex, we're having an expectation and a memory, not what we're feeling in the moment. because the patterning of that is so deep. So when we want to change the pattern, and this is one of the things that comes out about how do we change things subconsciously through experience, through doing something different, more than thinking about it, more than talking about it. Yeah, it's so, so important, because most of our lives are simply this expectation of the experience that's based on a memory, which is the pattern. And when we kind of stop that, it's like, what am I feeling right now? And more times than not, we don't even know what that is, because it's such a strange thing. And resistance. Oh, of course there's resistance every moment, because every part of your conscious mind is holding on to everything that it knows with everything it's got and all the energy in the world. So what do? You lean into the resistance. You don't try and kind of overcome it. You don't try and push it, because the more we push, the more resistance. The more resistance, the more we push. Oh, we just relax. And we dance with the resistance. This is a beautiful practice. I don't know if I learned it from my friend Christos or if it popped up for me one day. I'm not really sure where it came from. So whatever your resistance is in any situation, do this with your eyes open or closed. It doesn't really matter. See the resistance there in front of you, or feel it inside of you, and actually begin to dance with the resistance. Like really begin to dance with it. How does the resistance move? Where can you touch it? Where does it touch you? How do you kind of just soften into that, and it starts to actually move something? Because the more we try and do it with the mind, we go into patterns, we go into stories, we go into, if I explain this, then I can understand it. And if I understand it, then I know what to do with it. No, we don't. We just kind of think we do. So can we just dance with that? So like part of my process with this rage is dancing with it. Is that a helpful answer? That's the wrong thing. Yes, no, is that helpful? Does it give something? Does it answer the question? Fabulous.
Jonty, if you can perhaps just comment. I think it was Sean who asked earlier, and maybe I heard the question wrong, but he was asking how do we show our partners, or how do we introduce our partners to the idea that sex and intimacy can be two separate things. I love the two exercises that you gave, and then you mentioned stop. Once you've done the exercises, you stop, because the pattern is to go into the sex straight after. And by stopping those exercises of intimacy is exactly that. It's showing the person that we're wanting to share intimacy with that they need not be one and the same. We can be intimate and we can have sex.
And the sex can be the most amazing expression of intimacy. We have to do it differently. And that's kind of, it's learning and it's practice and it's a mind shift and it's all those things. It's not just kind of one thing. And it's doing it and doing it and doing it, and then something starts to drop. So it's like having no sex every day for a year and expecting something to happen because it will. Ha! Don't do that. But there are things that we have to do, and we just got to learn to do them differently. That's really important. That was lots of stuff. So I want to give you guys something, I think, but I have to find it first. So don't go anywhere. It's here. Is it here? Yes. So we're going back to this. Okay. Chat. So this is a link to a free course that I have put up on Thinkific. And it's got some of the practices that we've done and some others. So it will give you some stuff to do, and it's a good introduction to some of this. And there's lots in that to think about and talk about. And for people who are here who don't know me, I work with people on journeys of sexual healing and growth and exploration and learning. We do this online and face-to-face. And I love to share what's coming up. Tuesday, the 12th of October, is the first water flow massage for summer, spring. And I can't wait for that. It's one of the deepest, most beautiful experiences that we do. It's about 3/4 full. So if you want to book for that, please do before it gets full. On the 1st of October, I'm doing an interesting talk. It's called Falling in Love Again. And it's about relationships and how we kind of can keep falling in love and keep falling in love, because it's one of the secrets to a really lasting, fulfilled relationship is to keep falling in love with each other. That's at Namaskar Wellness Hub in Fourways, and it includes supper. And I was told today some live music, which is really cool. I have no idea what kind of music, but I'm looking forward to it. And that is that. Are you traveling anytime soon? Workshops. I would love to, and I'd love to come and teach where you are, Leanne. I know that you're in the UK, and I can't wait to come there. Somebody I have become really close to is in Ireland, and I can't wait to go and spend time and do things there. And I hope early next year that will all happen. Yes, so we are definitely looking forward to all of that. And then also I'm going to do while I'm there, some practitioner training, which I can't wait to do. So everybody can kind of have just more fun and pleasure and intimacy and love and excitement and chaos and all these beautiful things that are part of this journey. It's all wonderful. We'll be doing a sensual massage day soon. Within a week, I will set the date, maybe even before my newsletter goes out on Monday. Oh, if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, please do go to the website and subscribe. Lots of cool stuff in that. And all the information goes out in that. Let's stop that.